I knew something was wrong the moment I saw my own suitcase sitting outside my hotel room. It wasn't lying on its side, like someone had dragged it into the hallway. It was standing perfectly upright. The telescopic handle was extended. The zipper was closed. Even the luggage tag was turned neatly toward the hallway, almost as if someone wanted to make absolutely sure I'd recognize it. I stopped where I was. For a few seconds, I honestly convinced myself I'd walked onto the wrong floor. I looked at the room number. I looked at the brass plaque beside the elevator. 3rd floor. Everything was exactly where it should have been. Except my suitcase. I'd left it inside my room less than 15 minutes earlier. My heart started beating faster. Slowly I walked toward it, my footsteps muffled by the faded carpet. The hallway was unusually quiet. No televisions behind the doors. No conversations. Even the ancient air conditioner that had been rattling all evening had finally gone silent. It felt as though the entire hotel had emptied while I'd been downstairs. When I reached the suitcase, I noticed something folded beneath the handle. A white envelope. No hotel logo. No room number. Just one word written neatly across the front. For you. I hesitated. Some instinct told me not to touch it. Instead, I glanced toward my room. The door was shut. Nothing looked unusual. Still, something felt wrong. I picked up the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. At first, I couldn't tell what I was looking at. The picture was dark and slightly blurry. Then I realized it was the hotel lobby. The reception desk. The elevators. The small sitting area with 2 leather chairs. It had been taken earlier that evening. I knew that because I was in the photo, standing at the front desk while checking in. The picture wasn't taken from the security cameras. It had been taken from somewhere behind one of the pillars near the entrance. Whoever took it had been watching me before I'd even received my room key. I turned the photograph over. Written on the back were 4 words. You noticed too late. A chill crept up my spine. I instinctively looked behind me. The hallway was still empty. I reached into my pocket for my phone. No signal. That wasn't unusual. The hotel was tucked away in a remote coastal town, surrounded by steep cliffs on one side and dense forest on the other. Reception had been unreliable since I'd arrived. Still, I opened the hotel's Wi-Fi settings. Connected. No internet. Perfect. I slipped the photograph back into the envelope and reached for my room key. My hand froze halfway to the lock. The small paper seal I'd wedged between the door and the frame before leaving was gone. Most people probably wouldn't think twice about it. I always did. Whenever I stayed somewhere unfamiliar, I'd tear off a tiny corner of a receipt or brochure and tuck it into the doorframe before leaving. If someone entered while I was away, the paper would fall. It wasn't foolproof, but it had never failed me. The paper was gone. Someone had opened my door. Maybe housekeeping. Maybe maintenance. Maybe... I swallowed hard. I slowly placed my hand on the doorknob. It was cold, much colder than the surrounding air. I turned it gently. The latch clicked. Unlocked. I was certain I'd locked it before going downstairs. The door opened less than an inch. A narrow strip of darkness stared back at me. Then, a phone started vibrating inside the room. Not mine. Someone else's. It rang once, stopped, and a quiet male voice whispered from somewhere inside, "He's back." I stood frozen, staring at the phone in my hand. The message was still on the screen. Do not trust the front desk. Before I had time to think, another vibration followed. This time it wasn't a message. It was an incoming call. No caller ID, just the word unknown. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? Nothing. No breathing. No static. Just complete silence. I was about to hang up when I heard what sounded like a car door closing somewhere in the distance. Then the line went dead. I lowered the phone and listened. The hallway outside my room was silent again. No more knocking. No footsteps. No voices. Whoever had been outside was gone. At least, I hoped they were. I locked the door, dragged the small desk in front of it, and pulled the curtains shut. Only then did I finally notice the time. 2:17 a.m. Less than 20 minutes earlier, I'd gone downstairs for nothing more than a bottle of water. Now I was barricading myself inside a hotel room in a country where I barely spoke the language. None of it made sense. I picked up my passport from the suitcase and checked that everything else was still there. Cash, cards, camera, laptop. Nothing had been stolen. If someone had searched my luggage, they weren't looking for money. That thought bothered me more than if I'd been robbed, because it meant they were searching for something specific, something they believed I had. I tried convincing myself to leave immediately, pack everything, get in the rental car, drive back toward the nearest city, but reality hit me just as quickly. The reception desk had closed hours ago. The parking lot outside was almost completely dark. The nearest town was over 40 minutes away, connected by a winding coastal road I'd only driven once in daylight. Leaving alone at 2 in the morning didn't feel much safer than staying. I decided to wait until sunrise. It felt like the smarter choice. Looking back, it was the biggest mistake I made that entire trip. Sleep never came. Every few minutes I'd hear something outside. A scooter passing on the road, branches scraping against the building. Someone walking somewhere above me. Each sound made me check the door again. Around 4:30, exhaustion finally won. I don't think I slept for more than half an hour. A sharp knock woke me. Real sunlight filled the room. Someone called my name. This time it was unmistakably the receptionist. I moved the desk away and opened the door just enough to look out. A young man wearing the hotel uniform smiled politely. "Good morning, sir. Everything okay?" For a second, I simply stared at him. He looked completely different from the voice I'd heard during the night. "You called reception?" I asked. He frowned. "No, sir. I mean, last night. We close at 11. "There isn't anyone here overnight?" He answered so casually that I almost believed him. Almost. Then his eyes dropped to my suitcase. The smile disappeared for the briefest moment. "So," he said quietly, "you found it." Before I could ask what he meant, another guest walked into the hallway, pulling his luggage behind him. The receptionist immediately smiled again. "Breakfast is served until 10, he said, stepping aside. Then he walked away. I watched him disappear down the stairs. Something about that conversation kept replaying in my head. He hadn't asked why my suitcase was outside. He hadn't looked surprised. He'd simply said, "You found it," as if he already knew exactly where it had been. And that was the moment I stopped believing any of this was a coincidence. I skipped breakfast. The last thing I wanted was to sit in a dining room pretending everything was normal. Instead, I threw a few essentials into my backpack, zipped my suitcase, and carried it downstairs. The receptionist looked up the moment I entered the lobby. That same polite smile returned to his face. "Checking out already?" "I haven't decided." He nodded slowly. "No problem." His answer was normal, almost too normal. I left my suitcase beside one of the lobby chairs and stepped outside. The morning air felt completely different from the night before. Fishermen were unloading boats at the small harbor across the road. A delivery truck parked outside a nearby cafe. Birds circled above the shoreline. It was hard to believe the same place had terrified me only a few hours earlier. For a moment, I actually questioned myself. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe someone had entered the wrong room. Maybe the messages were some stupid prank. I wanted to believe that. Then I noticed the man sitting across the street. He wasn't drinking coffee. He wasn't looking at his phone. He was watching the hotel. Dark baseball cap, gray hoodie despite the heat, sunglasses. The moment our eyes met, he stood up. Not quickly, calmly. He crossed the street and stopped beside me. "You staying here?" he asked in fluent English. His accent wasn't local. I hesitated. "Yeah." He looked over his shoulder, toward the hotel entrance before speaking again. "Don't." I frowned. "What?" "Don't stay another night." Before I could ask another question, he reached into his pocket. Every instinct told me to step back. Instead, he handed me a folded business card. No company logo. No name, just a handwritten number. If anything strange happens, he said, call me. I looked up. Who are you? He smiled faintly. Someone who checked in before you. Then he walked away. I watched him disappear into the morning crowd. None of it made sense. I unfolded the card. On the back were 3 words. Room 312 survived. A chill ran through me. There was no room number on the front. Nothing to explain what it meant. I slipped the card into my pocket and turned toward the hotel. The receptionist was standing inside the lobby, watching us. The instant he realized I'd seen him, he stepped away from the window. I walked back inside. He greeted me exactly the same way. Smiling, relaxed, as though he'd never moved. I forgot to ask, he said. Did you sleep well? There was something unsettling about the question. Not what he asked. The way he asked it, like he already knew the answer. I've got a question first, I replied. His smile didn't move. Shoot. Who stayed in room 312? For the first time since I'd met him. The smile disappeared completely. He looked toward the office behind the reception desk, only for a second. Then he looked back at me. I'm sorry, sir. We don't have a room 312. At that exact moment, the elevator doors behind me opened. A young woman stepped out carrying 2 towels. As she walked past, she quietly whispered without looking at me, "Don't let him know you found the card." Then she kept walking as if she'd never spoken. I turned back toward reception. The receptionist was staring directly at me, still smiling. But now, his eyes weren't. I stood there for a second after the woman disappeared down the hallway. My first instinct was to go after her. My second was to get as far away from the hotel as possible. The second instinct won. Without saying another word, I picked up my suitcase and walked toward the exit. The receptionist didn't try to stop me. He simply watched. As I reached the front doors, he called out behind me, "Sir?" I turned. "If you leave now." He smiled politely. "Don't come back after dark." I didn't answer. I walked straight to my rental car, threw my suitcase into the trunk, and locked every door before getting inside. For the first time since arriving, I felt a little safer. The engine started immediately. I pulled out of the parking lot and headed toward the nearest town. The hotel disappeared behind a bend in the road. Only then did I realize a black pickup had pulled out behind me. I checked the mirror again. Still there. At first I ignored it. There weren't many roads along the coastline. It wasn't unusual for another vehicle to be heading the same direction. 5 minutes passed. Every time I slowed down, the pickup slowed. When I sped up, it did the same. I took the first side road I saw, pretending I wanted to stop at a viewpoint overlooking the ocean. The pickup turned with me. A knot formed in my stomach. The road ended at an empty overlook with nothing but a rusted guardrail and crashing waves below. I parked. The pickup rolled in 30 seconds later. It stopped about 20 yards behind me. The engine stayed running. No one got out. I wasn't waiting to find out why. I threw the car into reverse, swung around the pickup, and accelerated back toward the highway. In the mirror, the truck pulled out behind me again. Now I knew. Someone was following me. My phone suddenly rang. The number wasn't saved. It was the handwritten number from the business card. I answered through the car's speakers. "You shouldn't have left." It was the man I'd met outside the hotel. "You gave me your number." "I know." "Then why are you following me?" A brief silence. "I'm not." I looked in the mirror. The black pickup is right behind me. Another pause. "What color?" "Black." His voice immediately changed. "Listen to me very carefully. Do not stop. Do not pull over. And whatever happens, don't let them reach your trunk." I glanced instinctively toward the rear of my SUV. "My trunk? Why?" His answer came almost immediately. "Because they think you're carrying it." My grip tightened around the steering wheel. "Carrying what?" "I don't have time to explain. You picked up the wrong suitcase." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. I looked in the rearview mirror again. My suitcase. standing exactly where I'd placed it inside the trunk. The same scratches, the same airline tag, the same red ribbon. Wasn't it? A terrible realization hit me. I hadn't actually checked the luggage tag since finding it outside my room. I had only assumed it was mine. The man continued speaking. They searched your room because they were looking for that suitcase. When they couldn't find what they wanted, they put the wrong bag outside your door. Every muscle in my body went tense. Slowly, very slowly, I reached toward the passenger seat where my hotel keycard still lay. Printed across the top was the room number. Then I remembered something I'd completely overlooked. When I'd checked in, the receptionist had never once asked me to confirm my luggage. He'd simply handed me a room key. Someone else had carried my bags upstairs. I had never actually watched them put the suitcase inside my room. The one sitting in my trunk might never have belonged to me at all. And if that was true, then whatever everyone had been searching for was still inside it. I didn't say another word. I hung up the phone, gripped the steering wheel with both hands, and kept driving. The pickup was still behind me, close enough that I couldn't see its headlights anymore. Only the front grille filled my rearview mirror. I looked toward the navigation screen. The nearest police station was 23 minutes away. Too far. I needed somewhere public. Fast. A blue sign appeared ahead. Fuel station. 2 kilometers. I took the exit without signaling. The pickup followed immediately. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the engine. The gas station came into view. 2 fuel pumps. A small convenience store. 3 cars. Most importantly, people. I pulled in sharply and parked directly beside the entrance. The pickup stopped at the far end of the lot. Its engine stayed running. The driver's door never opened. I jumped out, grabbed my backpack, and ran inside. The cashier looked up. "Can I help you?" "I need you to call the police." He stared at me. I realized I probably looked insane. Sweaty, out of breath, constantly looking over my shoulder. Before he could answer, the front door opened. A man walked in wearing a dark baseball cap. The same man who had handed me the business card outside the hotel. He raised both hands immediately. "I'm not here to hurt you." The cashier looked between us. "You know him?" "I don't know anyone anymore," I answered. The man nodded. "Fair enough." He placed a folded document on the counter. "Open your suitcase. I think we should do it here, in front of witnesses." That was the first thing he'd said all day that actually made sense. We carried the suitcase behind the counter. The cashier reluctantly agreed to stay. I unzipped it. Everything inside looked normal. Clothes. A towel. A pair of hiking boots. Nothing unusual. The man picked up one boot. He squeezed the heel. Something cracked. He pulled out a small utility knife from his pocket. Without hesitation, he sliced through the rubber sole. A plastic-wrapped package slid onto the counter. Then another, and another. Each one was about the size of a passport. No labels. No markings. Just vacuum-sealed bundles hidden inside both shoes. The cashier's face went pale. "What is that?" The man looked at me. "That's why they've been following you." He finally introduced himself. "My name's Daniel. I'm not a tourist. I work with a regional anti-trafficking task force." He explained that authorities had been tracking a smuggling network operating through small coastal hotels. Couriers would arrive carrying nearly identical luggage. Someone at the hotel would quietly switch the suitcase after check-in. The courier would unknowingly leave with the wrong luggage, while another member of the group collected the real one later. Simple, quiet, almost impossible to detect. Except, someone had mixed up the luggage. Mine. The criminals realized the mistake before the exchange was complete. But by then, I'd already taken the suitcase back to my room. That's why someone searched it. That's why it was left outside my door. That's why I kept receiving warnings. Not everyone involved in the hotel was working with the smugglers. Someone on the inside had realized I was an innocent tourist. They couldn't stop the operation openly, so they tried to warn me without exposing themselves. The anonymous messages, the photograph, The tracker. Every warning had been an attempt to keep me alive. Minutes later, police cars surrounded the gas station. The black pickup never moved. The driver stepped out peacefully. He never looked at me. Not once. Almost a year has passed since that trip. I still travel, just not the same way. Every time I check into a hotel now, I carry my own luggage all the way to the room. And before I unpack a single thing, I always check the baggage tag twice. Because sometimes, the most dangerous mistake you can make isn't picking the wrong hotel. It's picking up the wrong suitcase.